everyone. Welcome to Cyber Smart Conversations with Harsha. I'm so delighted to be joined today by Jonathan Strom, Senior Manager, Technical Services at GWL Realty Advisors. With over 15 years of experience in the property management services space, focusing primarily in operations, Jonathan has participated and led numerous technical projects, portfolio strategies and programs, sustainability initiatives with emphasis on strong results. Thank you for joining, and how are you doing today?
Very well, Harsha. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Great to have you. So today's topic is property management, what needs to be changed. But before we start, and one of the questions I love to ask my guest is how you got to this point in your career, like when you were growing up, is this what you wanted to be?
Yeah, certainly. No, that's a great question. Kind of an interesting origin story. So as a younger man, going way back, I was always fascinated with architecture, the science, the math, the art behind it, just everything about it appealed to me. So I was convinced that I would be working in the architecture space. Doing what specifically, a bit unclear, but I was convinced that it would be in that capacity. And so as time, progressed, of course, throughout, your education path and more discussion with your peers, the element of choice kind of factors in, and, a few more choices, a few more options available. So there was a period of time where I was a bit overwhelmed with, what should I do? What's the most valuable choice? What is going to provide me with meaningful work that's compensated well long-term? And so there was a period, where I kind of remained static. I think that's a common experience amongst a lot of people because there are obviously a lot of choices available to them. And so there was a period of static, and I just was, waiting on, the right conversation to kind of spark, that interest. And so I had a really great conversation with my father. So he's been working in the real estate space for a number of years. He recently retired, and he shared with me his experiences in property management. And it sounded, like a tremendous opportunity, lots of variety, lots of different challenges, involvement in many different spaces. So I loved the idea of having that variety. And something that I really enjoy is solving problems. Creative problem solving is definitely a strength of mine. And being able to apply, the skills that you obtain over time broadly to, help with a solve in different spaces. And so, of course, I started out, my father helped me line up a conversation with a phenomenal property management group. I started out with Ben Tall as a junior building operator. And then, of course, just over time, leaned into the role. Tried to be reliable, tried to be helpful, and tried to demonstrate a strong work ethic. And that seemed to have paid off over time, earning the team's trust. And it created new opportunities for myself over time. And with those opportunities, brought expanded involvement, with sustainability initiatives or technology. So it was quite a bit of choice available. And so I certainly appreciated, those opportunities, those conversations, and those mentors along the way. I've worked with Ben Tall, Oxford, Manulife Investment Management. I also spent some time in the oil and gas sector, which certainly helped sharpen my skills around critical process. And yeah, so just the most recently I joined GWL Realty Advisors. It's been a phenomenal experience. They've got a really great team. They're doing a lot of great work in different spaces. They're really focused on doing the right thing for the customer and their stakeholders. And then most recently, but prior to GWL, was Manulife Investment Management as operations manager for the portfolio. And again, just phenomenal experience to help round out what I can provide. And so as the technical services manager with GWL in Calgary, it's being able to speak intelligently to, a number of conversations and contributing in these critical spaces like our sustainability program and what we're doing with access control and the technology space and the intelligent building space. So all of those experiences and the access that I've had to phenomenal people and talent has really helped to inform, what I can contribute And so, yeah, very thankful for the opportunity. There's lots of people along the way that I should thank, but what kicked it off was a conversation with my dad, and obviously very appreciative of that.
Interesting, gaining experience and then applying back to your work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
it's been a really great experience, and just love the opportunities that we're involved in, and some really exciting stuff coming down the pipe.
So back to our topic on technology-enabled property management. So real estate is going through an evolution right now. We see technology providers or prop tech have stepped up to disrupt the industry. And with the latest technology advancements in the buildings, we are seeing a change, like more satisfying and seamless tenant and management experience. But I would like to hear your take on the difference between traditional property management and tech-enabled property management.
Sure. Another great question. So I'd say the main differentiator is in that the tech-enabled space, you're going to have properties, building infrastructure, building equipment, and critical process that are enabled via internet service provider, Wi-Fi, cloud-connected services. Whereas in older existing buildings with a more traditional representation or infrastructure in play, you're not going to see that level of sophistication, that level of integration, that level of opportunity and more precise control to help inform better choices faster. No knock on the existing buildings. I mean, obviously it's a science that has been improved over time, pneumatically controlled systems, but again, moving with DDC and advanced analytics and fault detection and diagnostics helps a team's process operate with more precision, which enables better utility consumption outcomes, which enables the ability to more quickly and more clearly identify anomalous activity in your property. It just enables better decisions faster and allows you to achieve more in the sustainability space, tenant comfort, the engagement piece. So it's really interesting to see what you can achieve. But yeah, it's the advent of connecting these systems and services with those external sources in order to enhance the overall property offering. Whereas with a more traditional representation, it's a bit more, it's insulated. And so, there's less opportunity available. And again, like with the example of pneumatically controlled devices versus DDC, I mean, it's a great, reliable or can be reliable means of control. But again, it's far less precision. And so when it comes to these newer discussions around enabling these better outcomes and sustainability driven initiatives or goals or targets, you're going to hit a wall pretty quickly as far as you can max out the potential, and then you're gonna hit that point, and it's just going to remain static until you enable the property with these additional devices. And I say, the more sensors, the better, because when you've got the right tech stack lined out, your hardware, your software, more remote visibility, better precise control, unique and helpful insights from the system outputs, allowing you to do better, faster. Fault detection and diagnostic, great example of helping teams move toward a more predictive and prescriptive preventative maintenance program, which could reshape what your preventative maintenance agreements look like, how you deploy resources, the costs associated. So I like where the future is headed for prop tech. I welcome these discussions and opportunities to learn more about technology and software that can be utilized to improve these outcomes and to really round out the offering as a demonstration of clear intention to do the right thing in these spaces as our world becomes more and more advanced. It's it's a pretty wild time. So I love to see what's happening. But getting back to the original question, I think the main differentiator is the integration and connection with these external services to enable new outcomes and means of control.
Yeah, because property management, they concentrates on the day-to-day operations of a property. And like you said, equipping property managers with more data and insights on property performance, on building operations, allowing them to spend time managing and added that much needed human touch. But when it comes to technology and the way the industry is set up, what are some of the technical challenges faced by operations team in day-to-day building operations?
Sure. So there are a number of them. That's probably not surprising. So there's some really basic fundamental pieces that play in that are a factor. So considerations for maintaining, things as simple as system or equipment inventory. Do we have a line of sight? So, we're engaging in these projects. We're focused on doing the right thing, but it's really important to take stock of what you have in play and what connected services are in play. Obviously, for a number of reasons. So ensuring that you have a fulsome inventory of this equipment in play is really important, and further ensuring that you revisit the inventory and audit it and update it on at least an annual basis. Semi-annual might be the way to go, depending on how much change and how much OpEx and CapEx you have lined up to improve the infrastructure. Another big one is availability of and lead times on critical equipment that helps satisfy that requirement. So, obviously we work with, some top tier providers, and some devices are readily available, thankfully, whereas others, if there's, particular equipment involved that makes it more specialized or higher capacity. The more specialized equipment, you're looking at some pretty significant lead times, which makes it really difficult to achieve a project on time, which can obviously, cause issues for a property management team. You, depending on your approach to accruals, it's also reshaping how projects are performed, in that it may be a phased approach. Instead of lining out a fulsome CapEx project over 2 years, maybe it's 3. Year one, you line out, the intent, the feasibility, the design documentation, the project specification. Year 2 is ordering the hardware. And then in year 3 is the install and implementation. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of our experiences in that space. Despite, we work with some phenomenal talent. I've worked previously with Ellis Don Managed Services at Manulife, and GWL, really great talent. They've got some really strong relationships with some top tier providers, and they've helped to improve outcomes. But there's still challenges. It's unavoidable by any institution. Another good one that comes to mind is existing team level expertise. So, we talk about this is not a new notion. I've been involved in a number of conversations and conferences where, eventually building operations, the function performed by our frontline staff, the maintenance team, will intersect with the world of IT. Yeah, we're there. It's not on the horizon anymore. And so I think it's really important for us to improve outcomes, ongoing monitoring and management of these enabled systems, these smart building systems, and to help deliver on our goals, and not only that, but to improve procurement. So, it's not a matter of eliminating those existing relationships with IT support providers, but it's ensuring that the people represented, in the conversation are able to identify problematic conditions and report those things, so that we don't need to work with a third party where they need to maintain such a high level of vigilance, because we're not equipped to make any sort of, we don't have an opinion or can't provide some sort of useful feedback. So it'll definitely improve procurement in the service agreement space. So for savings and just doing things better in the space, lining up a fulsome training program is the way to go. So more connected devices means more opportunity for exploitation through cybersecurity threats. Obviously, we've all encountered some form of cybersecurity threat at one point or another, and obviously, much like everything else in life, um, or most things, the threat continues to evolve. And some of these operators are quite sophisticated, and so it's very, very important that each property management group or each company take a firm stance on how they're going to manage that conversation and provide the training and resources to support intelligent discussion, intelligent decisions in that space. And again, it's we're all quite busy, and it could be something as simple as that the real clear evaluation when unpacking an email. If you don't have a regular training piece in place and you're not giving consideration to those kind of basic elements that help identify a problematic piece or threat, it's going to create it's going to be problematic. It's going to create downstream issues. It's pretty impactful. It can be very costly. Yeah, and then again, an accurate documentation for single line systems and systems topology. Again, going back to that inventory piece, you got to, you have to insert some sort of inspection or placeholder in your computerized maintenance management system to make sure that you've got the right point person involved, revisiting the conversation, making sure that your documentation is up to date, it's accurate, as built, what have you, and engaging in regular discussion with your service providers and making the expectation clear as part of their deliverables to help satisfy some of these requirements. They have access, controls and automation, third-party IT management, making clear your expectations around regular deliverables, and they can assist with managing this documentation for you. So have the conversation, be clear in your expectation, and most groups are happy to participate and perform and provide. And so, yeah, just being clear in what you need is really, really important. That ties back into procurement. And if you're not sure, ask a peer, ask an industry colleague, go to a subject matter expert like yourself, and have the conversation, get informed.
Those were interesting points. And one of the things that you mentioned about inventory, because if you don't know what's there in the building, it's difficult to understand the risk associated. So that's
100%.
the basic step to start. Understand what's there in your building and then understand the risk and then plan to mitigate the same. Because the another point that you mentioned about training and leveling up the expertise, because we are putting so much technology in the building in terms of hardware, software, devices that increases the attack surface. And we are already seeing so many attacks on the real estate sector. Also in terms of social engineering, phishing, emails. So what type of training is needed to enable better decisions around technology and cybersecurity?
That's a really, really important conversation. And I think there's lots of great resources available. I find that a lot of groups are kind of assembling, the best offering to suit their needs. But there's a tremendous amount of support available. There's online resources, there's consultation with different groups, some incumbent consultant representation as they expand their suite of services. They can speak well to these conversations to provide suggestions or recommendations. I think you got to start with the basics, those kind of fundamental pieces of having the regular check-ins on phishing and malware exploitation or those types of threats that present themselves. And a lot of groups like Manulife and GWL and a lot of others fortunately have a pretty fulsome program in place to recognize and to revisit these pieces, because if it's something that's discussed regularly, then it's difficult to miss. But I mean, it's just like, it's been a few years since I've been off the tools, for example. And so, if I, whatever, got pulled in to provide assistance for a shutdown or equipment replacement, what would have come to mind immediately in prior years when I was actively performing these tasks might elude me. which may be impactful, for a number of different reasons. And the same applies to, much like what you would do with your emergency response planning, your business continuity planning. It's lining out the basics, lining out the expectations, lining out the regular intervals for discussion and training. It doesn't need to be anything, super technical, super sophisticated. Just establish a baseline for those kind of base pieces that need to be understood and met. And I can't emphasize enough just the revisiting the topic regularly. It's easy, very easy to get distracted or, forget, or complacency sometimes creeps in. And just regularly revisiting the conversation is really, really important. Something else that has occurred to me is working with different groups to line out, what's a good example? Again, I'm thinking as more and more sophisticated infrastructure is brought online at different properties, like understanding how a port on a switch can be compromised.
Oh, yes.
We're starting to get into that level of kind of technical knowledge. And so, it's really important there should be a correlation between your cybersecurity training and what you have represented on site, or what you will have represented on site.
Yes.
There needs to be a correlation. You need to be able to speak to those things intelligently, because people are going to look for those opportunities. And if you don't have the right program in place, or if you don't have regular maintenance, then that opens up those opportunities for those types of setbacks. Yeah.
Yes. And I like what you said, like if it's discussed on a regular basis, it's difficult to miss, because these trainings will help them how to identify a risk. Because if you're not able to identify a risk, you'll not report it. So identify how to identify the risk, and then how to report the risk in a timely manner. So that's really important. So that should tie to their work. So thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing your expertise, and it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Happy to. No, I really appreciate the conversation today. It was really great speaking with you. So thank you.
Thank you.